We open tonight's broadcast with news of a major terror attack. One person was killed and over 30 people injured. 5 remain in serious condition in a car ramming attack in Glilot, just north of Tel Aviv. ILTV correspondent Ariella Lechiani was at the scene. Let's take a look.
Yes, thank you, Ludas. I'm here at the scene of this morning's devastating terror attack where a terrorist rammed his truck into people waiting at a bus stop. Now, paramedics state that 35 have been wounded, including 6 in critical condition. And they also reported that when they arrived at the scene, 8 people were trapped underneath the truck. Now, many of the victims are senior citizens who had just gotten off a bus ahead of a trip to a nearby museum for a memorial ceremony for victims of October 7th and other attacks. Now, the terrorist was neutralized at the scene by armed civilians. However, police are still carrying out an investigation to get a better understanding of the attack and of the terrorists. Now, the area we are in is home to the headquarters of the Mossad and several other IDF intelligence bases. However, this is just the most recent in a string of terror attacks across the country over the past few weeks, including car ramming, stabbings, and shootings. There's definitely very high tension, not only due to the external threat of Lebanon, Iran, the Houthis, Hamas, however, also the internal threat of terror attacks.
Thank you, Ariella. And after over 1 year of continuous attacks from the Islamic Republic of Iran and its terror proxies, Israel, in an historic mission in the early hours of Saturday, launched precise strikes against military targets in Iran. As more details emerge on Operation Days of Repentance, it is clear that the IDF delivered a devastating blow to the regime, sending over 100 aircraft and drones on a 2,000-kilometer journey into Iranian airspace, knocking out their defense systems, targeting their ballistic missile supplies, and destroying their drone production facilities. And what's more, taking part in this historic mission were 4 female Israeli Air Force pilots. Further humiliation for a regime that prides itself on repressing Iranian women. According to a report this morning from the New York Times, this counterstrike has left the mullahs very worried. It has severely hampered Iran's offensive capabilities and now leaves the regime nearly defenseless against any future Israeli retaliation. Since October 7th, the Ayatollah regime in Iran and its terror proxies in the region have attacked Israel on a daily basis on 7 fronts. On October 1st, Iran launched the largest ballistic missile strike against Israel in history, indiscriminately launching nearly 200 missiles at Israeli bases and the civilian population. With Israel's precision strike, it sends a clear message to Iran. Your reign of terror in the region has come to an end. If you thought you could attack the state of Israel without consequences, think again. And now more details are emerging on the damages done to Iran in yesterday morning's attack by Israel, and it's substantial. The waves of airstrikes reportedly crippled Iran's ability to produce long-range ballistic missiles and destroyed S-300 air defense batteries, making targets vulnerable in future strikes. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz has the full report.
Experts analyzing satellite images reported saying that the waves of IDF airstrikes have crippled Iran's ability to produce long-range ballistic missiles. Crucial energy facilities are now also left open to future attack after Israel destroyed air defense batteries, including sophisticated Russian S-300s. The attacks caused deep alarm in Iran. The New York Times quotes unnamed Iranian officials saying the oil depots in 3 provinces are left deeply exposed. Iran's National Security Council held emergency consultations on how to respond. The New York Times reports that no decision has been reached, and its leader, Ali Khamenei, is expected to make public comments about Israeli strikes very soon. The strikes targeted reportedly include the secretive Parchin base near Tehran, which was used in the past for research and development of nuclear weapons, as well as a factory that manufactures drones. The strikes also reportedly disabled 3 Russian-made S-300 air defense systems at Tehran's Imam Khomeini International Airport and at the Malad missile base near the capital. The IDF released a video and photos showing F-15 and F-16 fighter jets heading out to carry the strikes in Iran. The images show some of the 4 female navigators in the Israeli Air Force squadrons who participated in the operation. The Israeli operation took the form of 3 waves of airstrikes that began overnight Friday and ended Saturday morning after receiving approval from the Security Cabinet. Explosions and fires were seen in Tehran throughout the night. There were fighter jets, including the cutting-edge F-35s. There were Adir stealth fighters and refueling planes in the operation, carried out in response to Iran's attack on Israel on October 1st, when it fired 200 ballistic missiles at the Jewish state. The IDF dubbed the operation Days of Repentance, and all aircraft returned safely to base.
We conducted targeted and precise strikes on military targets in Iran, thwarting immediate threats to the State of Israel. The Israel Defense Forces has fulfilled its mission. If the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, we will be obligated to respond. Our message is clear. All those who threaten the State of Israel and seek to drag the region into wider escalation will pay a heavy price.
And joining us now with more on Israel's strike against the Islamic Republic of Iran is Iran expert and researcher at the Institute for National Security Studies, Benny Sabti. Thank you for joining us today. And
Hi, good evening.
And let me start by asking you, what is your analysis of the much-anticipated Israeli retaliation against the Islamic Republic of Iran? Was this a successful operation in your view?
Not in my only opinion, but if we look at it objectively, it was a very successful operation against the Islamic Republic. Many facilities of the IRGC and the factories of the missiles and drones were hit in that night, and it caused for them not only losing the missiles or the drones or maybe some radars and the systems of air defense, but also these systems cost for them a lot in terms of billions of dollars. So it was a very great loss for the Iranian regime, and they maybe cannot be out of that for a few months. They cannot produce more missiles or more drones for a few months. So it's maybe improve the situation with Israel.
Mm-hmm. Now, the regime first attacked Israel in April, and Israel responded by sending a message. And Iran certainly didn't get that message. They launched a second massive attack yet again on October 1st. And now Israel responded by sending an even stronger message. I mean, do you think this is a strategic mistake? There are those who called for much more severe response. Do you think perhaps it was a strategic mistake not to target the oil fields or the nuclear sites? I mean, did we perhaps miss an historic opportunity to bring about the fall of the regime?
No, we didn't have to hit their nuclear facilities or oil facilities, but the attack should be big. Even in the first time in April, our attack must have been much more greater to be seen by the Iranian public and the Iranian regime. If this late attack was in April, it was much better, because Iranians, in their tradition, they believe in what they see and what harms them in their vision. So they don't understand the small message that happened in April, and we wanted to tell them, please don't attack us, and we won't harm you anymore. If we did what they do from time to time, for example, you know, the first operation of Hezbollah in the 80s was killing 240 Marines of US. So it was a very big operation, and it brought them the message not to escalate with Hezbollah, and they were successful with that. If the first message is the biggest, is much better than escalating step by step.
Mm-hmm. And so how is the attack being viewed in Tehran? Are there any indications also as to a potential response or course of action?
Well, yesterday and even today morning, and the Iranian regime papers, they played down the attack. They wrote and said that almost no damage happened to their facilities. They are very good in that propaganda and bringing this narrative of Iran regime is the strong and the others are not. So this is the reality for them. But as the hours are passing, the world and us and they are seeing the real damage that happened. Many satellite images are out now, and they show how much damage was in Parchin area, where the missile research and production area is, or other places. So slowly they will understand, and the whole world also will understand what really happened there, and they cannot lie for so many long time. They have to stop maybe after 1 or 2 days, because we are not in 80s, we are not in 90s that they could lie as they want.
All right, Benny Sabti, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Toda rabba.
Thank you. And now ILTV's Mayan Hoffman is standing by near the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem to update us on America's response to the Israeli strike. Mayan, what can you tell us?
Thank you, Lidar. With fewer than 10 days left until the U.S. election, Israel's retaliatory strike against Iran is one that either presidential hopeful should be comfortable with. Israel chose to avoid attacking Iran's nuclear facilities and stayed away from its energy infrastructure at the request of Washington. That's despite the fact that U.S. President Donald Trump, the leading presidential candidate on the Republican side, had said that he was in favor of more assertive action. However, the Biden administration had warned that such an attack could lead to a greater regional escalation. The attack, therefore, is reflective of what the polls show, that the election a week from Tuesday could go either way.
Thank you, Mayan, and let's take a look at the story you've prepared.
Following the Israeli strike on Iran, a senior administration official briefed reporters saying the president and his national security team worked closely with the Israelis over recent weeks, encouraging a targeted, proportional response with minimized civilian impact, which is exactly what took place. The official added that the U.S. hopes this will end direct hostilities. However, should Iran retaliate, the U.S. is ready to defend against any escalation. ILTV saw a copy of that briefing. Israel's strike highlighted close U.S.-Israel coordination. Israel informed the U.S. in advance, showcasing an alignment between Jerusalem and the Biden administration, despite any perceived recent strains. President Biden also commented briefly while speaking with reporters at Philadelphia International Airport on his way to Pittsburgh for campaign events supporting U.S. Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris. In the Persian Gulf, Israel's Abraham Accords partner, the UAE, and its hopeful future partner, Saudi Arabia, had also urged Israel to avoid targeting Iran's oil facilities, fearing reprisals against their own infrastructure. Following the strike, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and other Arab nations condemned the escalation, though they did not specifically name Israel. Instead, the UAE voiced deep concern over the regional instability, while Saudi Arabia emphasized its strong rejection of an escalating conflict. Israel targeted sites it claims were used in Iran's recent attacks, including incidents on October 1 and April 14th. Both successful interceptions were reportedly supported by intelligence from Saudi Arabia and the UAE.
And today, Israel is marking a national day of mourning in honor of the victims of the October 7th massacre and the fallen throughout this past year of fighting. The official day of mourning is being marked days after Simchat Torah, the Hebrew date of the October 7th massacre. Beginning at 6:29 a.m., the precise time Hamas attacked Israel, the country's flags were lowered to half-mast. And throughout the day, 2 official state memorial ceremonies were held at the Mount Herzl Cemetery in Jerusalem. One for the fallen soldiers and another for the civilian victims of terrorism. At the ceremony, Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed for the first time the attack on Iran.
התקיפה באיראן הייתה מדויקת ועוצמתית והשיגה את כל מטרותיה.
And on the day of mourning, the IDF announced the names of 4 fallen soldiers killed in battle in southern Lebanon. The announcement comes after an especially deadly weekend in which the IDF announced the names of 13 fallen soldiers who were killed in action, 10 who fell in southern Lebanon, and 3 in Gaza in the span of 48 hours. Many of them family men, fathers, leaving behind young children. Additionally, 2 young civilians were killed, 21-year-old Hassan Suad and 19-year-old Aljwan Mana, in a Hezbollah rocket strike over the weekend on Majd al-Kum, an Arab town in northern Israel. Very difficult weekend here in Israel. May their memories be for a blessing. And moving on, since fighting began on October 7th, about 40% of Afeka Academic College of Engineering students have served in the Army Reserves. Now, more than a year into this prolonged crisis, Afeka is preparing for high reserve draft rates to continue. This creates an urgent need for support now and throughout the coming academic year. Afeka has developed a comprehensive support package tailored to the diverse needs of its students. Scan the QR code below to learn more about Afeka's As One campaign and help empower Israel's future innovators during these challenging times. Please scan the code on the screen. And meanwhile, the ground and air war is intensifying in Lebanon. The Air Forces has hit numerous Hezbollah targets in Beirut, and Army engineers blew up a major Hezbollah tunnel command complex in South Lebanon. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
Even while busy in Iran, the Air Force managed to strike more than 200 Hezbollah targets in South Lebanon and in Beirut during the holiday weekend. They hit anti-tank missile sites, command and control centers, and weapons storage facilities. The Hezbollah Radwan commander in Eitarun was killed in a strike. Hezbollah has also finally confirmed that Hashem Safieddin, the top Hezbollah official expected to succeed Nasrallah, was killed in an Israeli airstrike some days after Nasrallah's demise. The IDF chief says Hezbollah's leadership is now in shambles.
בצפון יש אפשרות להגיע לסוף חד. אנחנו גמרנו את השרשרת פיקוד של חיזבאללה הבכירה.
IDF jets hit Beirut sites belonging to Hezbollah's Intel Division and Air Defense Unit. The Hezbollah assets were located inside or below buildings in the heart of civilian population. Before the strikes, the IDF issued evacuation warnings to civilians in the area. The Air Force carried out an airstrike against a border crossing between Lebanon and Syria used by Hezbollah to smuggle arms. IDF ground forces destroyed a strategic 2-kilometer-long tunnel and operations complex. The tunnel had the capacity to house hundreds of enemy fighters. The IDF's Yahalom unit uncovered the tunnel that was planned as a terrorist launching pad for an October 7th-style attack against Israel in the north. The IDF destroyed the tunnel, which is described as an underground combat compound. The combat engineers used some 400 tons of explosives to destroy the strategic facility.
And incoming rocket and drone attacks resumed early this morning after a holiday weekend with over 200 intrusions that took the lives of 2 civilians and wounded many others. ILTV's Deva Klein has the details.
The north of Israel remains under fire as an early morning attack saw 2 people wounded in Carmiel by a UAV strike and at least 2 wounded in the latest rocket barrage on the northern Arab town of Tamara. Sirens sounded indicating intrusions throughout the Upper Galilee before a UAV strike was reported in the Bar-Lev industrial area of Carmiel. 2 men were lightly injured by shrapnel from the blast. There were UAVs that also targeted the Western Galilee, including Nahariya. They were identified and downed in open areas. The IDF confirms that 6 soldiers were wounded in a rocket impact in the Shomra area in Western Galilee during the weekend. And the victims of the deadly strike on Majd al-Kum have been laid to rest. 21-year-old Hassan Suad and Aljwan Mana were the 2 killed, while 7 others were wounded in the market after Hezbollah fired 30 rockets that took a heavy toll in a civilian Arab-Israeli town.
In a significant development, hostage talks have renewed today in Doha, marking the first diplomatic effort since the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. ILTV's Ariela Lachiani has more details.
Talks to secure the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas have restarted today in Doha, Qatar, with US, Qatari and Israeli officials gathering in a bid to reach an agreement. Leading the US delegation, Secretary of State Antony Blinken expressed cautious optimism, emphasizing efforts to achieve both a ceasefire and the safe return of hostages to Israel. The negotiations, brokered by Qatar and Egypt, resume under tense circumstances. Following the October 7th attacks, where 250 Israelis were taken hostage, Israel's intensified operations in Gaza have kept the region on edge. Yet there is hope. Today, 101 hostages, including many civilians, are still believed to be held in Gaza, and their families gathered in Jerusalem last night praying for their return. Many held photos and sang in honor of their loved ones, their hope tied to the outcome of these talks. Hamas, however, has made its demands clear. Senior Hamas official Osama Hamdan announced that Hamas rejects any proposal that does not include a complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. The group has dismissed the idea of releasing hostages in exchange for a short pause in hostilities, demanding instead a more substantial agreement. Israel has been cautious in its approach, but hopeful. Following the recent death of Hamasi de Sinwar, Israeli and US officials see a potential opening in negotiations. Mossad chief David Barnea is expected to join CIA Director William Burns and Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani in the discussions this week. For the families of the hostages, each update from Doha brings a glimmer of hope as they wait anxiously for the safe return of their loved ones.
And it's day 387 of the war in Gaza, now a full year since the Hamas attack on October 7th that started the war according to the Jewish calendar. Fighting is continuing with heavy clashes amid IDF operations in northern Gaza. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz reports.
IDF forces from the 162nd Division continue to operate in the Jabalia region of the Gaza Strip and have killed more than 40 terrorists in the past 24 hours. Givati fighters operating in the area destroyed terror infrastructure and located military equipment. Amid the fighting, thousands of Gazan civilians continue leaving Jabalia for safe areas further south.
ועוד הישג, וג'באליה נופלת, מ"פ ג'באליה נופל, זה עוד קריסה תודעתית, גם פיזית, גם תודעתית. ואם אנחנו הורגים את מח"ט צפון הרצועה, זה עוד קריסה. עכשיו, המהלכים האלה עוד פעם, אני לא יודע מה נפגוש מחר. הלחץ הזה, הוא מקרב אותנו להישגים.
In the central Gaza Strip, IDF troops have conducted targeted raids leading to the elimination of terrorists and the dismantling of terrorists' operational posts. In Rafah, IDF units have been active in uncovering terror infrastructure, located a weapons cache, including rocket-propelled grenades within a Hamas-controlled building, and eliminated armed terrorists encountered during the operation. 387 days of war, and the IDF is on the ground in Gaza, confronting any remaining Hamas threats. One of the terrorists killed is identified as a UNIFIL employee involved in the October 7th attack. The IDF said that Mohammed Abu Itiwi and the terrorists under his command threw grenades into the shelter where partygoers from the Nova Music Festival were hiding.
Sagot Winery, where passion meets tradition. Nestled in the heart of Binyamin, our vineyards yield exquisite wines crafted with generations of expertise.
And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 16 degrees Celsius or 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly sunny skies are expected alongside warm temperatures reaching highs of 28 degrees Celsius or 83 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Lidarga Velazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.